Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vanguard. Back into the card fight Vanguard deck profiles. We enjoyed them. Select subscribe and start, shall we? This time we're covering Lyrical Monasterio, set 3 Haserit. I don't like Haserit, especially her name now, because back when it was just like the Discord translation, aka the incorrect translation, it was called Haselit, as in like double Z. And I really like it when words have Z's in them, because I don't know why. It's not that Z is my favorite letter. It's definitely not. But like, I feel like Z is such a rarely used letter. So whenever I see something that has a Z in it, I'm like, oh, that's a cool name or a cool word because it has a Z in it. And I thought Haselit was cool. Even if I didn't like her, the Z made me like her more. Now that I know her name's officially Haserit, yeah, now I hate her even more than I did before. So let's go ahead and get this started, and maybe you can see the reason why I hate it outside of the Z thing. First up, we have our starter in Fresh Start Haserit. Listen, we're gonna need a fresh start after what you fucking did to me. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base. Auto, when she's road applying for 1 second, draw a card. Standard starter, no special about it. You could really use any starter because none of the ride line specifies you need her in the soul, but, you know, like I do with all my other ride lines, if they have the same name or like there's an obvious theme in between them, might as well run it because they were released at the same time. They were obviously meant for each other. Just run it as the starter. Like I said, you can run any starter you want, but I do prefer having the ride line together. So, one of Haserit. Then we have our Overtrigger in Fantastic Funnel. Katrina, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, man, one Overtrigger, trigger move that card, draw a card, choose one of you, gets plus one for the turn, and if you revealed it during activation, which is during your fight, during this fight, you can get during your turn all your cards get plus 10. Essentially, when you sack this, it's like, not necessarily game in Haselit, but like it is. I'm always going to refer to it as Haselit because that's what it is in my mind. I'm going to very much struggle to say Haserit, but it's not necessarily game in Haserit, but it does do a decent amount of numbers, and it mostly makes the game, just not guaranteed. All around, Katrina is fun pulling off, if you actually see her in the over. Weirdly enough, she's the one I see the least out of all of the... Well, no, that's a straight up lie. She's the one that shows up the most. But not in terms of drive checks, just in terms of in general. She'll either be in my hand or mostly a damage check. There are occasions where I'll drive check her, but she will mostly show up in my hand, and I don't understand why. I feel like this Overtrigger has it out for me, and it doesn't at the same time. Either way, run whatever over you want. I use Katrina because... Why not? Oh, sorry, Katrina. There's an important difference, because Katrina is that one band card from Neo Nectar. Then we have our normal triggers, 3 of the Draw Trigger and Transparent Snowy Night Bear Toy, grade 0 boost, 5k power, 5k shield, 4k base. Honestly, I'm starting to get used to saying all these trigger names always, because now I'm starting to remember them. Like, now I can recall on memory what this draw's name is, just because. I don't know why. Anyways, Draw Trigger just Guard Circle. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, she gets plus 5k shield. Cool 10k shield, very nice to have. I like having Draw Triggers to increase my hand, because Haserit, while she does kind of like replace your field and then replace it with hand cards, you know, you need to get hand cards in the first place, and no one ever said those hand cards will actually be decent in the first place. For example, when I first played Haserit, all I drew from her skill were triggers. Yep, I drew 3 triggers back to back. Thanks a lot, Haserit, and then my drive check was 2 grade 3s. Neither of which being Persona rides. Yep. Top 5. Everything would have been perfect if I just didn't use Haserit. Well, either way, the draw is helpful, I guess, having those hand card gains, so hopefully I have better units in my hand. So far, testing disagrees with me, but, you know, I have hope that one day testing will agree with me, so 3 of Bear Toy. Then we have 4 copies of Snowskip Podvi. Meow. Sorry, that was... I don't know why I like doing that now. Grade 0, boost, 15k shield, 4k base. Front trigger does Guard Circle. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, goes 5k shield. So he's a 20k shield now. That's pretty nice, and also just having a front all around is decent, because with how I remember playing Haserit, it's just, you know, you can play it where you know, you get a lot of numbers to the front row on their initial attacks, and that's good because that means your first wave of attacks or your second wave. I completely forgot how this deck's supposed to be played, because I haven't played in a while, but I do remember most of my testing with it. The 10k push is all around helpful. I like Snow Skip Parvy, and it's the only effect trigger here that actually fits the theme, so I might as well run as a 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Parish's Tune Edwidge, in the sense that you have one, you have to have the others, and then, yeah, that stuff. So, Guard 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k base, critical trigger, auto rate the end battle of this being boosted, put it to soul, choose one of your music, plus 2k for the turn. Or be more exact, the card I will never sack in this deck, because for some reason she never wants to show the hell up. I know this crit has it out for me, because it rarely shows up in my other decks. There's only 1 or 2 decks it actually does show up in. I swear, this crit has it out for me, but, like, whatever, run this because it's crit. You don't really need the soul, but at the same time, if you do, you have the crit there for it. I wish he didn't hate me, but I know that's too much asking, so 4 of the crit. Then we have 4 copies of our girl, Peaceful Guardian Nika. Yeah, we're running a War Beast deck. There was an obvious reason of who the heal was going to be. Especially if it was a generic deck, it would still be her anyways, because I said it before that she was my favorite generic heal. So, yeah, it's always going to be Nika. We all know why I don't like the effect heals. If you don't know why I don't like the effect heals, the 10k shield is too situational. And yes, even though I've been shit-talking Bushy, and I'm going to probably have to shit-talk them later for this, about the, you know, everyone gets a goddamn restander for some reason, or mostly everyone gets a restander, is the fact that in the case where they don't restand and you need that heal in the first battle, yeah, suddenly that heal doesn't seem like a good idea, because I can think of a lot of times where, especially against Flagberg, where the restand happens at the end of the battle, and if I did have the effect heals, I would have lost, because I would have had to drop one more card on the first battle, and that in exchange would have made me one less card, would have had me at one less card for the next few battles, and I would be fucking dead, all because I had the effect heal, which should have had the advantage over Flagberg. So, yeah, take that as you will. If you want to run the effect heals, go ahead, but I like to keep the generic heal, because while they have technically less shield value overall, the risk of me dying to them is less, so 4 of heals. Then we have our 4 PG and Soapy Splash for Venia. Grade 1 boost, 0 shield, 6k base, contains Sentinel, 4 sounds of deck, and auto is put on guard circle. Choose one of your units, it cannot be into the battle, and if your hand is 2 or more cards you carry from your hand, discard it. Standard PG, not special about it, it's just basically if this is when it's placed on guard circle, if this and only one of the cards is in your hand when you would do so, you don't have to discard, which is pretty nice, because that means you can be as aggressive as you want, and then still have that nice little defense to come save you when you've inevitably done something stupid. So, alright, having the PG to back you up, it's pretty nice. You can really make any PG you want, but I do like it being Ravinia because War Beast. Also, she's the most generic one, and for some reason I draw her in almost every one of my games, so 4 of the PG. Then we have our, I guess, like, I would argue the grade 1 I hit the board with the most, and that's Soft and Fluffy Lunch Cowlina at 4 of. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto rear when your rear guard is put to bottom deck during your battle phase. If you have a Vanguard Haserit in its card name, she gets +5. And you can combo that with Haserit because Haserit can give her +2, making her a total of 8k base. And typically you send 2 units to bottom at the very least, so probably 18 before this thing starts swinging for boosters. So all around pretty good. Now if we had a raid to restand the back or rear and have her swing, then we would have some goodness coming down. But, you know, all around, Carolina's not bad. She's a good grade 1. She gets numbers. She makes it ever so slightly harder to guard, and she does it all for free, so why not run out of 4 in a Haserit deck. Then we have the card that combos with said good card, and that is Any Color Bubble Sharon. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto rear when this unit boosts a rear guard. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Haserit in its card name, she gets +5. Cool, so an instant 11k booster, and if you combine with Haserit, she's a 13k booster. Great, she just became a generic grade 1 booster. And at the end of the battle, by soul blasting one, choose a back row middle rear guard and move to the open front row open front row rear guard. So essentially, just this. You put this in the back row center, it gets numbers from you sending shit to bottom, and then you move it up there, and then boom, you gotta swing. But you know, the best part is too, technically you don't have to pick her. You could pick anyone you want and then abuse it with that. Either way, Sharon all around is pretty nice. Technically, you could, no, you can't, because there's no way to, like, shift something back to the back row, sorry, unfortunately. But, you know, she gets you a decent number. She gets you 1 extra attack with Haserit and doesn't proc off the heals, so fuck you, those special heals she gets around you. All around, she's a good grade 1. If you're wondering about the 6k basing for both of them, we'll discuss that later. For now, all you need to know is Sharon's a 4 of, because this deck definitely has the soul for it. Then we have our grade 1 of the ride line and our last grade 1, which is Springy Gate Haserit. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto when she's rode upon by a grade 2 with Haserit in its card name, choose up to 1 grade 2 less normal unit from your hand, call to rear to end of turn, it gets +2, and then auto rear at the end battle attack the Vanguard, draw a card, put it to bottom. Yeah, that's typically the Haserit thing where they all get on hit skills more or less, or like at the end of battle skills, put them to bottom draw. So on the plus side, this is a free call of any grade 2 or less you want, and if you call a very specific grade 2 when you ride upon this, this technically could lead into a board, and the best part about that is the unit goes back to bottom, you get to draw a card, and the reason why Haserit I find so interesting and why I used to think she was really good is because against nuke decks such as Eugene, where their effects don't go off if you don't nuke shit, they get around it because their rear guards go to bottom. Except the thing about that is the deck doesn't do a good job of doing certain things. Point is, Haserit is okay. One of in the ride deck of this thing, because she gets you a free call, and it's going to bottom, so not that they're going to nuke it, and then you get a draw out of it too, and it will most likely hit the Vanguard unless they see a trigger. So why not run as a one of in the ride deck just because? Then we have our grade 2s. 3 copies of Calm Benevolence, Mayhem, grade 2 and stuff 5k shield, 8k base, auto when she's placed on rear. If you have Vanguard Haserit in its card name, she gets +5. Cool. So, again, I say there's a constant trend. I don't know when we're going to get to the card that explains why all these numbers are weird, but yeah, cool. 13k base place. Honestly, it's not that bad considering you're probably going to loop it back to deck anyways with Haserit. So, 4 of, or like I guess a 3 of, because, you know, free 15k, 5 from her skill, 2 from Haserit's skill on grade 2 turns, a pretty good plus, so why not 3 of it, because it's all for free. Then we have 4 copies of Cat's Cradle form, Syphila. I thought that read Syphilis. Grade 2 and 5k shield, 8k base, and there's another weird number. Auto rear once per turn when your other rear guard is put to bottom of your deck by your during your battle phase. Soul Blast once she gets +10. Cool. So this is where the soul problem kind of comes into. Here's the thing you need to realize. This is the most important out of these 2. Use her first, and then use her if you have the soul for it. And then auto rear at the end battle, she attacked if her attack hit a Vanguard. Put it to bottom, draw a card, counter charge. Okay. If for some ungodly reason you ran into a counterblast problem, which shouldn't occur in this deck, but if you did, this is when you would well, actually no, just put it at the bottom anyways, because in hindsight, I was about to say you shouldn't do it because Haserit gets you a draw out of it and this doesn't, but then I remembered, right, yeah, she gets you a draw. So regardless if you're in a counterblast situation or not, simply put, always send her to bottom for her skill if she hits, just so you get the extra draw and a counter charge out of it. Either way, you've used it with Haserit, she's getting a guaranteed draw, but, you know, getting that counter charge is even more beneficial. Why not run Syphila out of 4 of? She's good. She could possibly be an 18k plus Haserit's skill, a 20k, and not to mention the guaranteed draw, regardless if it hits or not, and a possible counter charge, is all around making a good card, so why not run as a 4 of? Then we have the card that explains why all these base numbers are really weird, and that is Adorable Shooter Clanfiel. Grade 275k shield, 10k base, auto when she's placed on rear from your hand. Yes, she does proc from this grade 1. If you have Vanguard Haserit in its card name, that regardless of grade, put a grade 2 or less card from your hand into the soul, look at top 7, and choose up to 1 grade 3 card, 12k or less, grade 2 with 9k or less, or grade 1 with 7k or less power, call it to rear guard and shuffle your deck. If you do not call, draw a card. Okay, first off, it does not call one of each, because otherwise, this thing would be a free call, shove something to soul, check top 7, and call 3. And that would honestly be a little bit too good for a Lyrical Monasterio deck, even if it was name restricted to Haserit, because they could do that every turn if they wanted to, without Counterblast or Soul Blast. If it cost a Counterblast 2 to do that as well, then I'd say, okay, that's fair to make sense. But yeah, basically, this searches everything that isn't itself, because I'm telling you right now, every single grade 1 in this deck and every single grade 2, all in the grade 3s, all have those specified stats. So essentially, you're good. You get a free unit regardless. The downside is you can't really get a grade 0, but hey, you get a free unit, and if for some reason you don't call because maybe your top 7 was either bad targets or all triggers, you just get a free draw. So honestly, she's pretty nice. I like her skill. She gets you a rear guard. She gets you a possible draw if you can't call something. Why not run her to 4 of? There's no reason to. Also, she works during the battle phase. So if you manage to call her during the battle phase and you have a Haserit Vanguard, go wild, my friend. Then we have our last grade 2, which is our ride deck grade 2, and that is Undecided Pure Right, Haserit. Grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when she's rode upon by a grade 3 with Haserit in its card name. Soul Boss 1, choose up to 1 grade 3 less card from your hand. Call to rear if you called a card, draw. Cool. So essentially you just advance the board ever so slightly and then you get that free draw. So here's what you do. What you do is when you play, you go first, you ride this, then you ride to grade 2 to this thing, you use her skill to call Cleffill, and then you use Cleffill's skill, get your board, advance, swing with someone, you use the next turn, she goes to bottom by the way, you get to grade 3, and you ride from this thing, and then use this thing's skill, get the other Cleffill you had in your hand waiting for this one moment to arrive, and then you get another draw. All around, and then you use her skill to send that draw to hand, and then you get the point. Point is, it's good that they have a consistent way of spamming out stuff. The issue is that if you don't have good hand cards to spam out, this deck does die. That's its weakness. It doesn't, outside of her, they don't really have a way to get rear guards, and yeah, there's Sweet X, I always get the name confused. But at the same time, it's like, it will die to a new deck or it will die to any deck really if their hand doesn't show any goodness, because there are decks where even if they brick, they can get out of it. This is the deck where if you brick, you're not getting out of it very easily. So one of in the ride deck of Haserit, it's just a good card to have because it basically replaces a draw and gets you a free call, but I can't see another justifiable reason to see it. So one of in the right deck. And then our grade 3s. 4 of Magic Hour Ballad, Mean Mai. The exact words of her being here are, she's a target for this and nothing else. Grade 3 turn Persona 11k base. Auto rear when you attacks, choose one of your other units in the same column. You may have it get +5 for the turn. If you do that at the end of the battle, put this unit to bottom. Okay. The reason why this is here is because, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, Haserit and Mean Mai proc off at the same time. Meaning that if you gave her the on-swing skill, at the end of the battle, she goes to bottom and draw. If you use her skill to give someone +5, you can choose which one to use first, whether you send her to bottom for her skill first, or you send her to bottom via Hazel's skill and get a draw. All around, Mean Mai is still good though, just because she gives someone else +5, and you could use it to maybe proc up this thing, which will inevitably, well actually no, it will currently be boosting my Mai, or you can use it to proc up this thing for when you eventually move your other one that's in the center column that's also getting a fuck ton of numbers to there when you boost Sharon with any grade 1. So yeah, all around, Min Mai is not bad. She is good. She gets you that extra 5. If you don't want to run Min Mai, which I can see why, you can run Selfie Practice Annalise, because Annalise has a 12k base and is also a grade 3, so she is a target for clan fee. The reason why I don't run Annalise though is because Annalise would go to Soul, and that essentially means either I could give +5 to anyone, but instead I don't get a draw out of it, and she has to be boosted, by the way. Or I could run this, where I get more power, even though it's to a lesser area, and I get less soul, but I do get a free draw. I would rather go with the draw, but if you want to go with Annalise for that soul, go ahead. But I do prefer Min Mai for that 4 of draw card, so 4 of. And then our last card in the deck is our last unit, and it's our main grade 3. 3 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck of Irradiance Palette, Haserit. Grade 3, Tundra, Persona Ride, 13k base. I gotta say, I like the water in the background, or at least this part of the water in the background. Auto Van, once per turn, Combos 1, choose up to 5 normal units, rear guards on your field. Until end of turn, they get +2k, and auto rear. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked the Vanguard, draw a card, put this unit to bottom, and if you chose 3 or more rear guards, this unit gets +10. Okay, my big gripe with this, which I realized while I was recording a game for Haserit. This required you to hit normal units. When I was recording that game, I called triggers thinking that it hit any units. I cannot tell you how bad she is for the fact that she does not hit triggers. I don't know if it was just my luck with Haserit, because it doesn't happen in any of my other lyrical decks, but great God, I draw so many triggers with this deck. I don't even know why. And it's not just by her effect, it's just in general. And I think it is just that this deck is cursed, and it's one of the decks that just doesn't like me. But great God, why does she restrict it to normal units? I can see why she restricted to normal units, because the triggers would go back and then you could technically shuffle them with her, and then, you know, we have a whole instant gating problem over here. But like, come on, couldn't we just send them to bottom, and then we can just have a good old Oracle Think Tank deck going on over here? I resent that so much. I mean, the 10k is helpful if you actually pick 3 normal units, but how I see it is this. On my first grade 3 turn, more likely than not it's gonna happen. Afterwards, considering how often I just fucking draw triggers, ain't gonna happen. It's luck if it does, and honestly, most of the time, it doesn't really matter, because yeah, it sends us up to bottom and getting a draw is nice, but slowly but surely, you're probably drawing into more triggers than you are normal units, especially if your luck is the same as mine, and that means you're going to have less good things to swing with, because they won't even get a plus from the 2k. I like the idea how Haserit was thought of. I like the idea between getting that extra number, getting that on attack, sending it to bottom draw. I really do like that idea. The execution, in my opinion, especially when it comes down to a possibility of luck fucking you over, is the worst, because it targets normal units. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, like, I think I've made it clear in my other deck profiles at this point that I really am disappointed in how Lyrical went, because some of them feel like they had good ideas, but probably could have been expanded on a little more, and if they waited and did it slowly over time like they did Fortia and Hermina, then they would have given like a little bit more thought to them. This one did feel a little bit more unique, so I'll give it that. It does remind me of a deck, but I'm trying to remember. Oh, Time Leap. That's what it reminds me of. But like it does feel a little bit like Time Leap, but not a super lot like Time Leap. So I'm willing to give them the pass on that. I really do wish Haserit was a little bit more thought out, because I feel like if you just send stuff to bottom, there's not many ways, to my memory, that rear guard can get free shuffles, unless they're order searches. In that case, then there might be a problem. But honestly, I don't know. I really do feel like she picked rear trigger units, but whatever. It's fine the way it is. It gets numbers, it gets draws. It's just the way it's executed. I don't know how to feel about it. Either way, I'm ending it here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you once one. Don't forget to stand up. Your Vanguards.